On the line with us is Velshi, MSNBC's the host of MSNBC's Velshi on weekend mornings, must watching in the Hartmann household. On Twitter at Velshi, Alivelshi. And Ali, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Great to be with you. I really enjoyed that last segment. In fact, those who can see it, in the shot above me, there's a painting of sort of three faces of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, painted by somebody who was incarcerated for a very, very long time from his youth. And everything you just said really spoke to me. So thank you.
During the first 6 minutes of the hour, our commercial stations are running, news and commercials. Right. On our audio stream for our nonprofit stations, we do a book report. And on our television stream, I think right now we're doing a fundraiser for Free Speech TV. So I'm not sure what you were.
Nobody can see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one you were talking about. I'm guessing it was probably the book report.
The book report. The book report. Yeah, okay. That's correct.
Right. So anyhow, we've got a lot to talk about here. I'd like to start out with Russia, actually, and Putin. Not just Putin's nuclear threat, but this morning I retweeted a photo from a reporter in Moscow of a street protester having his head smashed into the window of a restaurant where this reporter was having lunch by a whole bunch of police officers trying to rescue him, presumably from the Nazis in Ukraine.
Right.
And you've been in that part of the world, and you reported directly from Ukraine. How do you think this thing is playing out? It looks to me like Putin has overplayed his hand. I'm hearing reports that he's actually calling up 1 million people, not 300,000, that the whole country is up in arms.
And they're calling up people who don't want to go to war, right? This is really different from Ukraine saying men between 18 and 65 can't leave the country. The people who are fighting in Ukraine are fighting for their country and their life. You and I have talked about this. It does feel a little like Putin's overplayed his hand. Somebody had hacked. There's been a lot of hacking of government things going on, and somebody hacked a government agency and put on the page. It's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of whether Ukraine will win this war. It's how badly we will lose. And history tells you, Tom, because you're a student of history, it's how it went in Afghanistan. It was going until it stopped going, until the Russian people said, I don't really understand what this is. I don't understand why our kids are coming back in body bags. I'm not quite sure why we're fighting this war. And by the way, we now appear to be losing, because in the beginning, Russia was not losing in Afghanistan. They had come in to support a propped up pro-Soviet government. Everything was going pretty well for them. And then they started losing, also with American help. Different story, because we ended up creating the Taliban out of that. But this is kind of remarkable what's going on in Russia. His allies, the two big ones, Xi Jinping and Narendra Modi, have both indicated displeasure with the way things are going on. The fact that there are protests in Russia is telling you something, because you go to jail for 15 years for protesting war because you can't say it's a war. And tomorrow, on Friday, they're going to hold referendums in a few of the Russian-controlled areas in Ukraine. Bet you I know already what the outcome of those referendums are going to be. In fact, I bet you they've all been counted already. So he's doing the Crimea playbook again, and I'm not thinking, and I've changed my view on this, Tom, because I remember thinking with each passing week it's advantage Russia. May not be.
Yeah, well, I remember when Russia took Crimea, and my initial response was, oh my God. President Obama's response to it, I mean, was perfunctory. He kind of shrugged his shoulders. He put a few sanctions on them. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something legitimate about that referendum. I mean, after all, the Crimea my daughter went to college in Crimea, studied Russian there and Ukrainian. And just for 1 year, but so I'm familiar with the region, familiar with that particular area, and I thought there's a whole lot of retired Russian military who live in Crimea. It's like Florida for us. That's the so I thought, well, maybe Crimea is 80% Russian now, and so this is a logical thing. So I didn't get all bent out of shape about it. I was just kind of following Obama's cue, but this is either a whole different thing, or Obama should have told us, back with the Crimean.
Maybe a bit of both. I think we didn't necessarily understand it. There were people like Chrystia Freeland and others sort of shouting at the top of their lungs, you can't let a country walk into another country, particularly, after everything we went through in World War II, to decide that wasn't going to happen. And that's what Joe Biden said at the UN. Joe Biden you know, not all my viewers agree with me on this because I'm generally speaking a pacifist, except when it comes to warmongers. And I thought Joe Biden really sort of hit the nail on the head. He was very clear that a nuclear war cannot be won.
Smuggling beer into a war zone.
However, we do have to actually have rules. And if we cannot demonstrate that we can protect countries, because we don't do it everywhere, Tom. We're not good at protecting other people from being overrun. We're not good at protecting people from their own dictators. The one thing we're supposed to be good at is a United Nations that says sovereign countries can't invade sovereign countries. And Ukraine is an example of the fact that we're not good at that either.
Yeah, sadly. I thought another telling thing was this morning over at Newsweek, one of the top stories by James Bickerton was how the #1 trending search on Google as of like midnight last night.
How to get out.
How to break an arm at home.
Ah, okay, to not get conscripted.
That obviously, you know, I mean, but that's that to me is just tragic. I mean, that's just heartbreaking, tragic. That is so sad.
I thought you were going with this is that a whole bunch of people have been searching how to get out of Russia. There's no way out.
I'm sure that's going on too, but I think they already know how to do that.
Yeah.
But you know, how to break your arm? It's wow.
But this was only ever going to change two ways, right? Putin overplaying his hand was only going to manifest two different ways. One is sort of a leadership coup of sorts, and we don't have enough information to know whether that's actually going on, or it was the people. And you know, things are tougher in Russia than they were when the Afghan war ended, when the Russians got out of Afghanistan. But people are doing it. People are getting frustrated. Maybe part of it's inflation, and part of it is the suffering that people have got, and part of it is hearing about deaths, and part of it is hearing that Russia's pulling out of some places. Whatever it is, those are the elements required to change this, and they're starting to change. I'd always maintain that unless something changes in Russia, it may not change in Ukraine. Seems like things are changing in Ukraine independent of Russia, and things are changing in Russia.
Right. You know, we can only hope. You know,
we can only hope.
Democracy is a good thing, and sadly, largely because this is my new book about neoliberalism. That you know, when Gorbachev, who I've met, I mean, Gorbachev wanted to turn Russia into Sweden. He explicitly said this at the time. He believed that having a strong social safety net with free education, low-cost housing, free college, free health care for everybody, that would be an appropriate transition from a communist country that was also providing many of those same things. Yep. But now we're going to have a capitalist component to it. When he went to the IMF, him and Yeltsin went to the IMF in 1991, George Herbert Walker Bush and the IMF said, no, you've got to impose neoliberalism. And as a result, you know, you get the wake of neoliberalism, which we see every single time it's been imposed anywhere, which is oligarchy. And oligarchy is a very unstable system that typically lasts fewer than 1 or 2 generations, and it typically flips either into essentially dictatorship or back into democracy as a result of popular uprisings, which we may be seeing right now. We'll see.
We may be. Sweden was a better plan.